Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Explicit Measures podcast with Tommy, Seth, and Mike. Whew, I was up late last night. We had a conversation last
Morning.
night, and I was up late, and I got wrapped around the axle playing around with this new feature that came out for Power BI recently called Tables. It's enhanced tables, or I don't know how you describe it. We were joking about this last night. Like, finally, a feature that we've pushed Microsoft to make better tables inside Power BI and access to data. I like it. I think it's a really slick feature.
Yeah, I think this table thing may catch off.
Exportable formatted data tables, right?
Exportable tables.
Exportable formatted data tables. Yeah. So basically, that's kind of funny. Report Builder has now gotten to the cloud faster than the Power BI desktop.
That's true. It's
literally it.
That is exactly true. That is exactly what happened there. The report, and so I will say this, interestingly enough, even though it is Report Builder, when I look at the feature set on that one, when you look at, you can style these reports, but they're basic. There's nothing to them. Like, it's
Hey, it's just data dump, man.
I know it is a data dump,
Like,
but I'm looking at it.
You're just gonna export it into Excel. Why? You don't need all the fancy features and stuff. Then you can go back to Report Builder.
I just feel like
I'm on everything and everything. So needy, Mike.
So needy. I'm like the one with all the needs. But it was good. It's a cool feature. You can literally just pick any old data set, right click, create table, create exportable table. Boom. Drag fields over, grab measures, drop it on the plate, drop it on the table. Stuff just starts showing up. You add new grains of data, like category and date, time. Boom, just starts making more rows. I thought it was cool. I was like, this is really nice. So I really, really like that feature. Anyways, I think Microsoft is listening to us. They're adding some well-needed access to data features.
Totally. I mean, in the last 13 months we've been doing this.
What influence have we done?
Yes.
This was a rapid development, right, cycle. Like they just cranked this out 6 months. Just like
the Eisenhower urgency important matrix. They literally just put topics from the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and my point last night was I agree, right? With the Donald Parrish puts in the chat, right? This is where they should have been 5 minutes to wow.
Yes.
This should have had that moniker 100%.
I agree with that one.
5 minutes to exporting the data to Excel.
Wow. 5 minutes to export. Oh my goodness, that would be great. Awesome. Any other kind of big announcements that are going on? I believe there's a big conference happening this week.
Build starts this week. Yeah.
Microsoft
Build starts today.
At 10 a.m. Central Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Time.
PST.
I have never been to a build conference. I'm looking forward to the day when they actually start opening those back up again, and I can go back and to the build conference. But yeah, there's been a lot of teasers for this keynote on at Build. So I'm guessing there's going to be some good stuff to watch and listen to there. So looking forward to that. I'm excited to see what they're going to announce. And what are these?
On the plus side,
game changer worthy? Is it moniker game changer worthy?
As long as Microsoft,
at least we have our topics set for next week.
That's true.
Build stuff.
Yeah. This is why you love all these big announcements and events. It just gives us more fodder.
Oh, it does. It totally does.
Yeah.
It just adds more fuel to the fire here.
Microsoft, you keep doing what you're doing. We're going to keep doing what we do.
Yeah. And
they're going to keep ignoring us because we're so small. Amazing.
I think our chat helps us out with more of our topics than
I would agree.
Microsoft does in completing things that we tell them to do.
That's true. Yeah, definitely, very much so. I will also call out. There's a couple other things that are coming on this week that I think are at least worthy to note. This is stuff that's coming from the Power BI blog. There's a gentleman by the name of, let's see if I get the right. It'll be led by Alex Powers and the Power BI Cat team. There's going to be a Power BI Dev Camp on Thursday the 26th. So coming up here in 2 days. That one looks pretty good. Interesting, they have the picture. They talk about this Dev Camp will be led by Alex Powers. But they have a picture of Ted Pattinson I think. So
Yeah.
so maybe Ted's. I mean, I think Ted's on the team as well, but I believe Ted does a lot of the dev stuff, and I really like his content. He's
Yeah.
really good about all of his dev work. He does a really good job explaining things. So if Ted's doing it, Ted, if you're on the internet, I hope you are, because you're great at all the dev work. I like working on the content that you create. He's a great trainer and person who can do really good jobs around teaching people how to use the deeper parts of Power BI. Super like it.
Ted actually, a fun little side bit. Ted had a consulting gig
He did. And
in
he
Tampa.
was in Florida, right?
He was in Florida, so
Yeah.
that's actually where we met, and he helped me really relaunch the Tampa user group.
Really?
So yeah, so for the first 3-4 months, when we were doing the user group and we are just getting our feet on the ground, he would attend. He was really helping me out. He introduced me because Chuck would always visit him because they always fish.
Oh yes.
Yeah, they seemed like two high school buddies just living it up every time that they would come to a user group. So, but no, and then I mean, then he's had a bunch of stuff at the summit even before he worked at Microsoft, and yeah, he does a lot of amazing stuff on the embedded side.
Yes. Yeah. So I've definitely reached out to him a couple of things. I've actually tried to get some interesting embedded things working. So I've asked him for some questions. He's been really good about. Hey, did you look here? Here's some sample code. May want to try this one out. I'll also throw this in there since we're talking about embedded. The playground, the Power BI playground, playground.powerbi.com is absolutely incredible. They've been adding little features here and there, and it is amazing what you can do in there now. Really, really cool. So really like the embedded playground as well. They've been making some good improvements there. Any other key announcements or other items we should discuss or review? Yeah.
I think we're gonna hold our tongue on some things. People have been talking about it online. I'm gonna wait until
We're gonna
I
wait.
hear anything official.
I want to hear some official
So
things.
yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, like I said,
Bite your
good
tongue,
topics
people.
for next week,
Good
Yeah,
topics for next
exactly.
week.
right?
How will this play out?
Anyway,
What
yes,
will happen to
moving on.
Bill? Dun dun dun. Excellent. Well, let's move on to today's topic. I think this is going to be a pretty good topic. I mean, I say this, I think, pretty much every week. This is going to be a mediocre topic. We'll switch it up a little bit. This will be all right. Just kidding. So this is talking a lot about. So I guess I have to frame this question a little bit. The topic for today is called dealing with the spoke, and this is there's a couple woven concepts into this topic here for today. So the idea here is there's this concept of the hub and spoke approach to doing business intelligence. There's a central hub or a center of excellence or a centralized BI location where the experts live to do things around organizational BI. And things we're not talking about here is we're not talking about all of the self-service BI pieces, right? So when we talk about self-service BI and centralized BI or governed BI, these are things that fit on I would call a spectrum, right? It's central BI. Everything's built for you. All the reports are catered. There's a team that's building everything and certifying it. There's a lot more rigor around a governed or a data set that's coming from that team. And then there's across the organization, there's a lot of layers of how self-service these reports become. So anyways, the idea here at the hub and spoke is the center portion is your team leading the Power BI exercise, and then these spokes are individuals who live in potentially different business units. They're knowledgeable. They know their data in their area. They may be doing some very heavy, deep things around Excel or building their own Power BI data models or serving their own team in a data way. So the idea here is how do you work with that person that is out on the spoke, that is not being paid by the central team, but adds a lot of value to the different business units of your company. Seth, any other thoughts you want to add in there for the concept of dealing with the spoke, bespoke visuals?
Dealing with people. Yeah, this will be a boring conversation.
Yeah, we never talk about dealing with people.
No, I think it should be a good one, right? Like you lay it out as more of an infrastructure and team interaction thing.
Well, that's how I was perceiving initially.
There's definitely the data component of this as well, right? Like what is your company doing with its data, and why are you aligning your structure? I guess your organizational structure in this way, which is also kind of the way you're managing your data in today's day and age with cloud sources and ways in which we can kind of pull data together and share it across the company in different ways, right? Because you're talking
Yeah.
about data access to access, enablement, and ensuring that your organization has the appropriate and types of reporting that it needs, and that support, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting role for that the BI team.
Tommy, your thoughts?
What,
Did you do you come at this with a different angle than how I was thinking about it?
yeah, I feel like we're pretty balanced today because we have the product or the people, the product that I was going to say how essential the process is to this.
Oh,
So it's like we planned this, but we actually didn't.
we didn't.
But
Literally, this
that's
just showed
my
up.
first take. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm telling you, man. This is not the first time people, process, and technology has come up on the podcast.
Yeah.
PPT comes up quite
Yeah.
often.
If you asked me what the most essential aspect to have have sturdy spokes, so to speak, and have that as work over time, to me, it's about the process
Hmm.
and what processes you have in place. I think when you're dealing with other teams, you're going to deal with slightly different cultures, different behaviors, different way of doing things, and they have
True.
their own different needs because they have different bosses.
Agreed.
So it's a little different ecosystem. That being said, what we can do and what should be done from the centralized BI is setting expectations on what data is available, how did the data comes in, so the users, the people at the end of the spoke, knows what to expect and knows what resources they have available to them. So it's that benefit, but they also need to
Yep.
know, in a sense, call it the stick, but knowing where are the limitations and what's responsible of them or what is required of them.
Mm-hmm.
Having that relationship, I'm not going to burn the wheel analogy here, but in a sense, allowing that to continue to turn is essential because to me, I can see this and I've seen it in other situations where you've had that situation, you lose the process, you lose that communication,
Mm-hmm.
and immediately things go rogue. And immediately it becomes not a spoke, but tentacles. And it becomes literally these pieces that are missing. So to me, it's all about setting expectations continually, not just on the onset.
I'm gonna pull up an analogy here, but I don't know if this is right or not. I feel like a lot of um, BI of things. I was talking with my team the other day, just working at doing data. How, anyways, this is just personal observation. Data is like it has a level of entropy to it, and this is a very engineering way. Entropy. Um, Everything tries to fall to the lowest level energy and at equilibrium, right?
Yeah.
That's what entropy is. And I feel like it doesn't matter what I work on, whether it's an application, whether it's a Power BI report, whether it's cleaning data, everything has this lowest, common denominator that it just if the data is just messy and dirty and no one's paying attention to it, it's just going to stay messy and dirty. There's going to be bad fields, people are going to put in weird data. It just won't be clean and you can't use it for your reporting. So I feel like the analogy I'm going after here is running a BI team or working in companies with business intelligence is like pushing a rock uphill. Like sometimes the hill is very steep and it's hard to push that rock. Other times that hill is somewhat flat and you're just kind of able to roll the rock along. But regardless, I feel like it always takes effort and planning to keep things moving forward, to keep making progress. If you let go, like you said, Tommy, if you just stop doing something, the rock just starts rolling downhill. It it,
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
gets
And
it gets messy. The reports get dirty.
Yeah.
Like they don't work. Stuff starts breaking. You have to keep people on it to keep it working.
that's across everything though, right? Like if
It's probably pretty
Tommy,
universal.
I love your points, right? Because when we talked about the adoption roadmap and all of the different components, that an organization would need to increase the data culture, like this topic kind of fits in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one of the key tenets that I absolutely agree with before you even dive into that whole world is spend time really understanding how that network that you're creating, right? The hub and spoke, that path
Mhm.
between those teams is going to work, or between the organization. What are the roles of this team? What are the roles of your team, and how do they interact? How do you deal with these situations, or how do you promote data sets, or how do you get access to data, or how are problems triaged, or how do you request certain things, right? That framework I'm a huge proponent of, because it provides the reference for everybody to learn from,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Like you're introducing something new to an organization, or you're trying to strengthen it. In those conversations, you have to have the same starting point, right? Like you may start and iterate on that process, right? I'm not advocating for spend 2 years developing a process and then launch it out, right? I'm advocating for having one, so that all of the conversations that go around this interaction and how these teams work and how you build out that stronger and stronger process
Sure.
that's going to work better within the organization, that there's a central location, right,
Hmm.
that becomes part of the data culture and becomes part of the organization, until it's an onboarding thing, right? Everybody knows that this is the way we use and work with each other, as well as the data in the organization itself.
And I think we're we're not necessarily lacking, but one of the more underassumed or undervalued parts of this is it's a relationship that goes both ways.
Hmm.
Agreed.
Been very much where I'll always get frustrated with the end of the spoke, and there's been other teams like, well, why are they doing it that way? It's like, well, maybe I wasn't providing the resources. Where if I was on the other end and I wasn't getting the necessary resources, I'm going to find an alternative too. I'm not just going to
Right.
wait around.
Hmm.
And we have to remember both sides of this, where we always talk about what are the consumer needs, right?
Oh,
But what are the needs for that spoke? What are the needs for that analyst that we might not necessarily be their boss, their leader, but at the same time, we kind of are the leadership figure in terms of from the data point of view. And we need to direct how much we're going to open the funnel for data to what they need, but also ensuring that they adhere to the process, adhere to the values of how we build reports. So it's a weird dance. It's a weird relationship.
I think this is, I liked your so Tommy, was funny. You're talking to like the people part of this, right? It's a relationship between you and the spoke. And
Mhm.
I was thinking about some of the interactions I've had in the past with working with the spokes part of the organizations. And so you're engaging with them, but there you almost have to like, I don't know. I think of it from a consulting standpoint, because I'm the consultant, right? I'm kind of like showing up to that department and trying to sell the opportunity of, hey, work with us. Here's how I can help you, but can you help me with this? Like, so you're kind of like doing this like negotiation part to here, between you and the business. And I've had a number of times. It's a fine line between, going into a hub or on the spoke end, a business
Mhm.
unit, and saying, show me what you're doing. Let me help you. Do you need access to information? I have the information because I'm part of the central BI team. What can I do to help you, um, get to the data? But I don't know your domain knowledge, right? A lot of the like, you probably get familiar with it if you work with it a long time, but the people in those business units know what is required, what questions they're asking, what they're trying to do in their job. And so I don't know, it just becomes one of these like, how do you get how do you provide enough assistance that they become capable, but not provide so much assistance that they become reliant on you? Like, oh, I need Mike again.
It's
Oh, I need Mike.
100%, right?
Like, it's just, there's a fine, like, you want to give them a lot of help. You want to show them capability. You want to show them this is a better way of doing it. But then you need to be able to back off and be like, okay, now it's your turn. You try it. Like, you build the next thing. And
Mhm.
sometimes I'll get a lot of questions like, oh, we're just too busy. We don't have time to learn new things. And I'm thinking to myself, man, that is that is a characteristic of a person, or maybe it's a process. I don't know. Person. If I hear phrases like "we're too busy to move forward," or "we're too busy to learn something new," it really turns me off. Like, I don't think you're not the right team for me. This is not the right team to push into Power BI.
Well, yeah, right. But at the same time, like some tentacles are stronger than others, right? Like,
I would
I
agree.
guess
Yep.
I guess
Or-
when we're talking about support of different groups and things,
Hmm.
I think first and foremost, roles and responsibilities, right? My team is responsible for doing these things, and maybe that's a spike intro of, we're going to stand up a few reports for you. You're going to give us a resource or somebody that's going to support these and build on them
I
and
think that's
learn how to
definitely
do
needed.
that.
Yes.
Like as an intro of, you know, um, helping to facilitate reporting within the organization, right? And there
Yep.
might be some people issues right there, right? Because it's like, well, I'm an Excel guy. I'm not learning this new stuff,
Yeah.
or
True.
whatever the case may be.
Yep.
That's a different kind of problem.
Well, they don't have to learn Excel now. They
Um,
can just go export from Excels
but
to tables now. They can just go get their
right,
yeah.
right. So, but sometimes, like in terms of like strength of spoke, right? I think that's going to align, or should put probably, with the strategies of the organization, right? Like, what are the big key factors that you need to invest a lot of time in? You might be investing a lot more time in a certain, business area or areas as a BI team, because your directive is to say, hey, 40% of your time really needs to go over here, because we need to help build out these reports, these insights for the organization. But at the same time, these are key elements that need to continue. You have to train or build somebody up, and that's the responsibility of the spoke. Is there's going to be somebody that assumes the responsibilities, understands how to create this type of reporting, and is able to support that in the future, and hopefully be an advocate, right? Somebody that interacts really well with the BI team on a regular basis, because they're picking up what they need to do and running with it. um, in all of these interactions, whether it's, I think, the first or later on, right? Defining defining the handoffs between these teams is really important, though,
Yeah.
because what I've seen is where those waters are muddy, or where somebody doesn't have clear ownership of things, is where things, right, really start to get
Mm-hmm.
get sticky,
Get
right?
sticky.
In the
Words.
how
Words stuff.
how are we accomplishing what we need to as an organization?
Right.
Because there's multiple touch points already, but is that a clear path? Are there clear owners on both sides, and handoffs? Because if there's one thing that's been really interesting for me in the evolution of how Power BI as a tool has been adopted throughout organizations, it's a lot of these conversations that we talk about, right? The
Mm-hmm.
in betweens
Yes.
happen a lot more,
Yeah.
right? Like,
I totally
you're
agree.
integrated into all these spots where you're constantly pushing.
Yes.
And when you can start to eliminate some of that with your organization, you're reducing a lot of those handoffs and some of the breakdowns that happen within,
I would agree
you
with
know,
that.
our area.
I think
So yeah,
I think it's
go ahead.
hard. I think you made a note there at the end that I thought was really relevant here, and I think even Chris Wagner is talking about this in the chat a little bit, which I also want to point out as well. There's this concept of like you can build like centralized models, and you can allow users to create composite models, which is a model but using like basically direct query to analysis services. So it's a model of models essentially, where you can allow business units or the spoke to kind of enhance things. And this kind of to me begs the question here around I really like this idea of being able to like build something that's solid to begin with and then sharing it into the spoke and letting the spoke consume content from that central model or design or whatever that is. But really what I think I challenge a lot of people here is what is the process to then bring those changes back into the main thing? Like there's not like
Yeah.
even just talking about cleaning up existing models. Do you have like do you and this is maybe something that speaks maybe to the maturity of the BI team. Do you actually have a process where you can do you have a process in place that regularly reviews models to clean them up, to get out measures or columns or remove things or if I looked at some of your models that you have in production, how many of those models have calculated columns in them? How many of those models have a little bit too much snowflaking and not enough star schema? And I think if you had to look at all those models, it's hard to do that. That's a lot of work to get that stuff figured out. And then as people develop more onto this, is there a cadence? Do you do this monthly? Do you review your models and figure out who else is building content across the organization and bring that content or promote that content into these main models? I don't know. Seems really interesting.
So I'll take a slight step back because from a lot of the things that you guys are communicating to me, I think we've talked about empathy a lot from the consumer side, But I think we really need to think about this too from the spoke side, where, at least in my experience, I've always expected out of the analysts what process I want in place. But we really need to also have the empathy on that end of the spectrum, because they have their own boss with their own pressures. So to me, I think
I totally
what
agree
would
with
help
that.
to the nitty-gritty stuff that you're talking about from calculated columns, there's two questions I think could really help continually asking to help build the right processes for the right teams is, what do we need from the spoke and what do they need from us?
Hmm.
What And I think continuing to ask those two questions helps that relationship. So we're satisfying, since their needs, where they may have a boss who requires things very quickly and they have that external pressure that we don't have to deal with. But we need them to use certain models if they're going to report on something that's governed, or just to have the right templates, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, you have to build reports in a certain way. So we need you to adhere to our standards and to use these processes the way we do. But you need from us the available data and also that insights for us to build these things, because we have this intense pressure from our department that you don't.
Who, I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pull a question here for a moment. Who like as you're doing this, as you're describing that to me, I feel like that's a lot of work to like make sure everyone, so like document the standard and then reviewing everyone's content to meet the standard. How do you
Mhm.
manage, like, who does all the
So,
reviewing of that? Is that
so
a peer
yeah.
review? Does stuff get published before things can get published to an audience? You have to go through a peer review back to the BI team.
So depending on the size of the team, there's a few approaches.
Okay.
And let's say you have a pretty built out analyst role where you have per department or per spoke multiple members.
Okay.
One of the things that I've tried is you identify the most competent person, the leader of that, in a sense, group, who's either been there a while or the person you can trust. That person, in a sense, is probably going to own a workspace. So you basically have that levels of, you have the Power BI administrator, but you also have a workspace administrator, where there is that, we're going to give you more than the average user, but you are responsible for the content in this workspace that it adheres.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, the more people you deal with, the harder it is to, exactly your point, to make sure that they're adhering to it. So you kind of have, in a sense, your, I don't want to say sub managers, but you're kind of like your lieutenants, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
in each content area. Like, you're the subject matter expert in marketing, or you're the subject matter expert in sales. So you are responsible for the content. If there's a problem here, I'm going to you. I'm not going to the user.
Agreed. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And
Yeah.
and so
But that's
I think that's a
works in a very
okay.
particular
I like
situation.
I like that answer because there's, I mean, and of course Wagner's chiming in here on the chat. He's like, there's no way you can review everything across your organization. It just gets
Right.
to be,
Right.
if and the larger your organization, the less you probably have full control over those key things. But
I, yeah.
I like your idea here of at least being able to. I would say at a minimum, you need a person who takes ownership of that, right?
Right.
If that data set's getting out, if it's shared, there's a part of the process that says, hey, go back. Seth is handling these things from this team. If there's something wrong, here's the owner of that data set. And I think applying ownership of these different things, of these different assets, I think makes a lot of sense.
Right.
And being able to build a process around, hey, do you have a question about this report? Does some of the data look wrong in this report? You know, um, you can funnel those back to the owner of that information. And it's up to them
And yeah.
to own it or handle it or figure it out or not.
Well, and the incentive too is you provide them that leadership role, where you're telling, in a sense, like, you can put this on your resume, but you are the workspace admin, like, you're the leader of your group, and you provide them that leadership training on for their team, right?
Hmm.
So it just, because obviously you're putting more work on one particular user. So in a sense, they don't have to, because you're not their boss.
Yes.
So in order for them to, in a sense, adhere or have a positive outlook to do it, provide them, like, you are the leader of your team, kind of thing. And it comes with these benefits and it comes with these responsibilities.
Hmm.
So, but that being said, that's not a universal approach. Quick example, or a quick item that came across. Someone messaged me on LinkedIn, and they're like, "Yeah, the scanner API is not working out for me." I said, "Yeah, what's going on?" They're like, "Well, I have 22,000 workspaces that I'm going over in one tenant."
Whoa, that's a lot of
So
stuff.
yeah, try imagining going through that content.
Mm-hmm.
So there's obviously different approaches.
I think I was Kevin makes a note here. We only review what items go into premium. I think that's
Mhm.
a really good breakpoint. I think that's a
Yeah.
really good note here is, if something is going into premium, you're paying dollars, and particularly like if you're on a P1, I mean you're paying lots of dollars to make sure that premium is up and running and doing a good job of whatever it is. So sure, you got a bunch of pro licenses running around, have at it, guys. Build what you got to build. But if it goes into premium, anything published into these premium workspaces goes through, again, to your point, Tommy. Here's the process. Here's the checklist that we've developed that goes into developing those things for premium.
It's interesting though, because if you think about the premium model, it's so that you don't have to license all of your
Mhm.
report users, right? And if your wider audience of the organization are just consuming reports, all of your reports have to be in premium,
Yes and
Well,
right?
no.
that's
Like you
part of
can
it.
you can be selective if you're the type of organization that like is doing premium for external reporting, or something for a
Maybe.
limited case basis. But
Sure.
if you're sharing anything, you would need all those other users outside of that to have a pro license then.
But you're saying, well, I mean, again, some companies just automatically have, like, well, there's limitations too at a pro user level, right? So at a pro user level, you can't get to a certain model size, right? So bigger data models don't fit in pro. So once you get above a
Okay.
gig, so
I guess I'm talking about, like, it's an interesting thought because I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm necessarily on board with it.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
I'm gonna flush it out a little
I
bit.
know what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I want to talk about it more. Or if you just want to move on, it's fine too.
no, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, what what do you? So you're looking at an organization that is only. I mean, I would think there would be more authors. It's okay. So I'm trying to digest your comment, right? Models are getting built, reports are getting distributed through the premium stuff. There's a whole bunch of other users in the organization that don't have premium. Is that what you're saying? And you're saying those users,
Well, I'm
why would they
saying,
even be
what's the
using Power BI?
difference? Right. What is the difference between reviewing everything and reviewing premium
Mm.
only when your premium pays for everybody to view things?
Right. So this is I want to make a comment on that, and this goes into the governance thing for me. If you were to, if this doesn't work as well with premium, actually doesn't work at all with premium per user. But to me, this is a great feature of premium capacities where that diamond icon on a workspace doesn't just designate premium to us. That designates a certified workspace by the BI team. So people, you can publish your reports all day long to your own, your own workspace. But in order for you to publish to premium, this is part of the governance, it has to go through that review process. And if you don't adhere to the process and the policies, you lose access to that workspace. So yeah, go ahead and publish your reports in my workspace. No one can see it. I think where I came from your comment, Seth, was premium allows the user, where you're publishing content to premium, allows that stamp of approval, and those people not just viewing but also working in it, they're adhering to it. If they're not following standards, if they're not, using the right templates, and even though there's been conversations like, just letting you know, you've lost access to this workspace.
But that
So
suggests to me that you have other workspace, and this is where I'm driving. I think
mhm,
it's workspace
yeah,
driven
okay.
as
Sure.
opposed to license driven,
Mhm,
because to me, it depending on the org, right? What this suggests is you have pro, everybody has pro and premium,
right,
because you wouldn't have other workspaces or reports
right,
that would be being shared within a wider audience without a premium license. And that's where I'm hung up, right? Like,
yeah,
I think it makes sense to say, hey, uh, each champion or each spoke has a workspace that is highly governed, right? Like, all the reports in here get reviewed
I think
to make sure that it's going wider. But I just don't see. I'm not arguing like, hey, does that work or not? I'm
Yeah,
arguing
no, correct. I
like,
know you're not arguing that part. I think I'm going to hard disagree with you on this one. I think there is a use case.
bring it.
so I think there is. So this is okay. Dan Meisner is what I was going to point at. So some companies already have an E5. So by default everyone gets pros.
Okay, so you're falling into the exact argument I'm saying.
No,
right?
I'm not.
You
but I
have to have pro. You have to have a license outside of premium.
Agreed. To get to share.
That's my argument.
Yeah.
That doesn't work though in all other organizations where they're paying for premium so that they can share reports to a wider audience without the need for licensing.
It doesn't work.
All you have is premium.
So I understand, but I'm just saying. I guess my point is where I'm hanging my thought here on this one is those premium workspaces. If you overload those premium instances, you're just forced to buy bigger premium or more premiums. So for me, like where I'm looking at this situation going, why do we want to review everything going into anything premium is those things need to be optimized as to probably a pretty good degree, because if there's an easy way for you to save money in your company, it's to take you from a P2 to a P1 because you optimized something, because you implemented incremental refresh, or, I mean, that's huge cost savings across your organization. And I think what happens is as those premium SKUs get used and your organization uses more and more of them, you get more of these reports that are full load refreshing all the time, or there's multiple data sets that are continually refreshing from a server and the backend servers are getting overloaded. So like there's now we're using data flows to load tables, and that's creating more pressure on XYZ other things. So I think it's a lot more of like a balancing act that's going on when you're in that premium space. So I think
we're scaling past into different types of orgs.
I would agree.
If
I think
you're in
right.
the realm of
Correct.
exceeding capacity, you're in a larger org.
You're in a big org.
Right?
I would agree with that 100%.
You probably have E5 or licensing is not a big deal. I'm saying in cases where, hey, we're launching this model, I'm building a champion in a spoke, or there is an audience. I guess in some cases maybe it works. In others, there's an expectation that you have additional licensing.
Sure.
And that's why I'm saying I wouldn't wrap it around the premium only as review, because
I see.
I have a lot of other things that have to be shared in the org. Right. And that's where I would say it's more workspace driven.
Okay.
Because, or types of things that, aren't going to get into, the reviewed workspace, whereas there needs to be a general team reporting workspace where we share a lot of stuff in between, but that also could be on premium capacity.
Okay. I think I'm more with your point now, because I think I was definitely taking the approach of looking at a larger organization and how they're looking. Like there's direct cost implications for buying more premium. So the needs for reporting don't change. Right. How many of those needs get thrown into premium maybe does.
Maybe what I'm saying is you can't have that expectation in every organization, because it requires double licensing for consumers.
Mm-hmm.
I do
and
agree
also
with that.
all this is nullified when you talk about premium per user. Because in order to seriously,
I get it.
Like none of this matters with premium per user.
But you're not going to PPU every single user in your org.
You have to.
People do.
In order to access the report, because it doesn't work with premium capacity.
Right.
Yeah,
you are correct.
But I'm saying so maybe for
very
super
weird.
Small orgs, right? Okay, so Tommy's on the super small org, Seth's in the middle, and Mike's in the large org, right? Like I guess my point is the vast majority of companies are going to have a very large consumption group, right, versus the number of creators.
Right. Well, I'm just giving the example that there's a lot of companies, a lot of organizations that are adopting the premium per user where this doesn't work. So anyways,
so my only note on here on premium per user is I do like it. It gives you an incredible amount of capacity to do a lot of things. So premium per user can save you a lot of money for not having a bunch of premium SKUs rolling around your tenant. But you're right, Tommy. Anyone you share stuff with from a premium per user workspace requires another premium per user license.
Right.
So I think the smaller organization set that you're talking about there actually makes more sense, unless your audience is large enough where you could justify a premium per user, a premium SKU versus just going premium per user. Like anything like 200, 100 users in an organization, those ones are probably more apt to go towards the premium per user thing. But what I would say, Tommy, to your comment, when the premium per user falls apart is when you start getting complaints about this report is slow. When I click on this thing, it takes forever to load this table. It takes too long to load this data set. You're on a shared capacity. Yes, you do have a lot more compute and you can run a lot more at that data model, but you run into other problems with poorly written models. And then you get the feedback like this report stinks, it's slow, like I can't get into stuff, like, but that's poorly written DAX and potentially a poorly a non-star schema data structure, right? So you have to think through those issues.
So that's a great transition for me because a
You're
question that I
welcome.
had.
Oh,
Thank you.
you can
Thank you.
you can give me my cannoli later.
Yeah. After we've already now thoroughly broke down licensing.
Yes, thank
Uh,
you.
but the part of this too on the spoke idea, we've talked about that synergy, but there's more, I think, more instances than not where you already have something in place and there is no governance or process in place. So you have these bad data models out there that are already published or already available, or you don't have that authority to say, hey, what are you doing here? And they go, hey, this is my report. Back off,
Hands
kind of
off.
thing. Right. Yeah. So like you're giving me the data, but I don't care what, in a sense,
See,
you're doing.
I disagree with that mentality altogether.
So do I. Yes, but
Just
that
because
happens.
if I'm giving you the data, there's some say like you can't just like, okay, give me the data, walk away. Like if you're using
Oh,
my
oh,
model that I have on premium or whatever, like if you're abusing that data set or that model, whatever that is, and it's causing your reports to be slow, like this is a two-way street, guys. You can't
well, brother, let me open your eyes to the world. This is life. If we don't have this implemented, or we just come into the situation, one, people don't know, but then two, again, why would I listen to you? Yeah, you're the BI guy, but I'm doing my own analysis. I got my own problems, right?
agreed.
So, and again, if you just say, by the way, your schema is pretty bad here, they're gonna go, okay, but everyone likes it. So, right? So how
Buzz off.
where do buzz off? Yeah, exactly. What can we do when we're brought into the situation where, okay, we're either transforming the org, you're brought into a new role, or you just lose it, right? Where we lose that process. How do you kind of regain that structure back? Because obviously we're dealing with a few different aspects here, not just process.
Well, what you do is you turn off incremental refresh. Then they'll be like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I do need to work with you now because this data is 1 month stale now. Like my report doesn't work. Ah, surprise, surprise.
I think that's an interesting point from the standpoint that like when you're setting this up, right, you have to just in roles and responsibilities and
Mhm.
how teams interact. There's a curve of evolution, right? Like when you're first starting out, you're going to be a heavy player in that business unit. You're going to be helping training people, hopefully find a champion and let them take off and then recede a bit, right?
Mhm.
But what do you recede to? And I think this dovetails into the conversation where it's like, okay, well, we have a shared premium capacity across business units. How do you make sure that these units are keeping in mind performance and other things that they need to? Because this isn't a specific premium just for them unless they want it to be. And that's where I think some of this, what's always intrigued me is the cost structure of how does the licensing get paid for. And I think an easy way to solve that problem is if you don't engage with the BI team when we're telling you you have performance or challenge or whatever issues, like the percentage of your usage of premium capacity, right, is going to be predicated on how much you pay the organization on a monthly basis. So when you tie cost to their ineptitude of building models or reports because they're utilizing more of um, or causing issues within that capacity, I think it is an interesting conversation.
Wait, so you're saying that you would do a monthly billing internally for premium?
Totally,
100%.
100%. You
Whoa.
should. Well, I mean, it's pushing the cost. Like so,
How
some
do you drive the action that you just discussed? Like, they
correct.
don't talk to me anymore. They're just killing everybody in the premium
I
capacity and
love
they
that.
don't care. Well, make them care.
Actually, I'm gonna look on the roadmap. I believe there were some features around that feature exactly as you just described it. Sorry, keep going. But I
I
think a buildback model is really
that's
good.
front. Yeah.
I worked in a client that had that exact issue. They had opened up premium. They were sharing it to a broader audience. People were building models. They weren't building good models. And they were like, we're out of premium. Stuff's slow. Things are failing. What's going on? And we looked at the premium and we're like, well, this one team that has this one report is refreshing everything, the entirety of the model every single time it refreshes. That's what's killing your capacity. And even now when you're on premium, right? They have these like you can even like what they call it, spikes. It's scale out
Mhm.
on a premium. So again, you can use your premium, and then on those load times where the processing gets very heavy on the back end, you can allow it to auto scale above and add some extra capacity to handle all the refreshing of your models. So
Auto scale scares me though, man, because like
oh, it
if you
totally
hit the
does.
threshold where you
It
hit
may
auto
never turn
scale,
off.
right, it just escalates to 24 hours,
Yes.
right? And then
Shorting a
you didn't
stock.
solve
Yeah.
your problem, right? You just hid the problem,
Yeah. I think there are occasional
except
like
for the bill.
yeah,
The
exactly.
bill's
The
not,
bill is not
you
So
good.
know,
I owe a
that's
little
not
more
hidden.
extra
That's not
money this
hidden.
year. How much?
Finance is going to come at you.
Yeah. I mean, anyone can build a model. Anyone can build these things and just let it go. But I think where the
Mhm.
skill comes in is how can you build these things in a way that are optimized? How can you build these things
Yeah.
in a way that scale well? I mean, and I will say that there are occasional bursty loads that do occur, right? If you're refreshing a model that's on incremental refresh, that incrementally refreshing model will create a massive load for a short period of time because it's trying to load all the partitions.
So Chris Wagner kind of voiced what I was trying to conceive in my head, where the chargeback is nearly impossible for a lot of organizations because politics is the challenge. Where, yeah, if
Sure.
we were all computers and you can easily bill, that's an easier way to do it based on percentage of use. But
Yep.
you're dealing with managers who are going saying, what are you sending me an invoice? We work at the same company. You're like, oh no, it's just the usage.
I'm
I,
telling
I
you
don't see
though.
that playing
So
well.
so so I can see that, right? Which is why I said it's an
I
interesting
can hear it.
conversation, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that quantifying or building a report to identify for the organization where the majority of cost is being consumed or used or et cetera within your premium capacities, because I'm going to be the one that has to go to finance and say, I need another capacity,
Hmm.
right? Like, why do you need another capacity? Like, I have to explain or justify like what we could do to not have to get another capacity. So it's the same conversation, right? We know that one of the largest, like one of our models and where all of our CPU is going is over here. It's not on usage, and we know that it's because this unit isn't working with us, and we need to get in there and we need to performance tune. Great, get in there and performance tune. Then it doesn't matter what they're saying. If you have a combative person issue with a spoke, then you're justifying the reason why you need to go in there, or maybe be a little bit more hands on, because of course they're going to choose that. I would assume, over just being like, yeah, spend another $5,000 per month or whatever.
Hmm.
So are you billing regardless just of the total, in a sense, usage on the capacity? Because then they're getting charged for the same amount if they're getting a lot of usage for a great report or for a poor report that
That's
also is getting.
but I think that
So then
but
they're
I think
in a sense you're using it as a penalty for both a lot of usage.
well, I mean what
No,
but doesn't
How
that
does
no.
it
seem
work?
fair
If you have a
though?
high, no, if you have a
Yeah.
high usage report, then that is something that's justified,
Yep.
right? That's saying like, hey,
Okay.
the reason we need it is because this business unit is crushing it. They created this report that the entire organization uses and delivers these insights, and everybody uses it every day. That's a fantastic problem to have,
Yeah.
right? And that
And please send
justifies the
this
cost of
3 grand
additional
by
premium
Wednesday.
capacity, right? But at the same time, like it's a difference between, does this make sense because our organization is getting tons of value out of it, or is it because we have technical debt that we need to go clean up?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
See,
that's the whole point, I guess, in my mind, of being the BI team that does performance tuning, goes in and helps people build more performant models, or escalate
I
and
don't know.
engage with those units.
I think in
You
theory
don't
it
you don't
sounds
like
good.
my ideas.
In theory it does. I just
Where
don't,
does it fall apart in practical?
because no matter what, you're using the charge as a penalty in both situations where they might have great reports, you're still charging the same amount, and then let's say usage falls off, and now they have a bad data model. You're going to deal with either someone who's used to paying a high amount at a particular department
But that's on
who
that
just
team though.
doesn't care.
But that's on that team. If that team doesn't see some sort, like, you only change behavior with hitting someone's wallet to some degree, right? If you have it, like, to your point, right? The report was good. It was consuming a lot of resources. If the usage fell off and that data model is still taking a lot of cost to keep up and run, what you've likely moved your analytics, or people are moved on to other models that are being used to grab that data. So where I'm at is like, okay, if that's true, then how do you sunset? Like, that this is the idea of, like, that department should be planning obsolescence of some reports and teaching those users, here's the new report, here's what we're moving to, and they're going to shut that thing down.
No, you know what works is the same thing I do with my kids when they don't listen. Click, turn off, kind of thing.
Turn
So
off the TV, turn off the premium.
yeah, well, in the sense of like, there's the note to me, a better approach where you can at least have the more documentation and only in a sense penalize for bad modeling or lack of listening. Because again, I don't want to charge someone extra because they have great reports that everyone's using. Because you're using the same index or the same measurement uh in both situations that I don't think plays well of cost of charging. To
Mhm.
me, what works is, hey, by the way, this model is not getting usage and is 30% of our premium capacity. You need to fix this in the next week or so, or we're going to turn off this report because we cannot have this on our premium capacity. So
So
to me, like that's one where you go, hey, we documented this as high usage or low usage, but it is killing our premium
I found,
capacity.
Tommy, this is the
I,
thing. It's coming, dude. I just found it. I'm so
It's
excited.
coming.
It's
Yeah.
coming. June 2022. Chargeback reporting for Power BI premium administrators. Like, it's a
and,
Oh,
thing.
and
let's see
maybe
a
that
couple of
maybe that
days ago.
dovetails to Chris's comment where there was the politics of organizations have made that impossible
Maybe.
until you until you automate it and make it possible because they can't not do it.
Right.
Right, like if you're
Mm-hmm.
using it, which is funny. I do think though that this, regardless of how you get spokes to play, right,
Yeah.
I think it's this does bring forward, I think, having enough monitoring and automation to
Ooh.
that the hub understands or has a pulse on what is happening within the organization, because you are going to be responsible for and have to talk to the
Mm.
Yeah.
administration and ownership of all of this within the org. So it's imperative to have that type of insight and reporting built on top before you unleash things,
I like that a lot, actually.
to a larger degree.
Yep.
And even kind of dovetailing off of Chris Wagner's point, maybe you
Right.
publicly put those reports out there, right,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
everybody has access to see and understand
Who's
who
using
is
what?
the problem, or like where do the best reports come from, to put it in a better positive light,
Yeah.
Right.
which of your tentacles or spokes is having the largest impact on the organization, and maybe you incentivize that as far as promoting data culture.
Right.
Maybe
I
maybe
like
maybe you
that.
give, maybe you give them, you prorate their amounts, right? Okay, here you go.
Yeah,
Here's
right.
here's the premium.
Yeah.
We're gonna
Here's the
just
percentage breakdown
Here's
for
the,
here's
you.
you
here's the
got
percentage breakdown.
30%.
Oh, I see you've gone through, here's the data quality of your department, and we see that all of your models have gone through reviews. We're going to give you a 15% discount, and we will absorb some of that cost
So
for your
that's
department for good behavior.
now that no, seriously, I think that's where, because that's my biggest hurdle here is it's very hard for me to comprehend using the same unit of measurement cost for both something very positive and very negative.
Mm-hmm.
It's like doing the same thing to your dog when he pees in the house and outside. And he's like, okay, like which one's better? And obviously, this is a conversation that probably needs to dive in more because apparently Marquette University did a whole study on this.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Wagner saying, and I didn't go to Marquette, probably wouldn't have gotten accepted anyways. So some smarter people have thought about this. But no, I think there's a mix of the cost, but also I think that ability of if you don't play by these certain rules, right, then you cannot, in a sense, publish reports.
Mm-hmm.
where as the admin, we have that ability. And when people start raising a ruckus, it's like, this is a data model that's unfortunately very bloated. Please talk to the author for them to fix it.
But
And then instead it's not on the admin.
exactly. And I think there is, again, to the process part of this, or even maybe part of the technology, right? I think the process and the technology pieces go hand in hand here. Just having a clear documented way of how the business and the hub and the spokes will work together. Just having some clear expectations. Hey, look, these are the expectations for certified data sets. These are the expectations to get to premium. I think just listing those things out and having those things there, because at some level, the central BI team holds some of the keys to the castle, and they need, like, in order for you to play with the data that we're going to give you, we need engagement from your leader that says we're going to commit to allowing Tommy to go talk to these different spokes, and they're going to be guaranteed a amount of hours per month that they're going to be integrating, working with, improving based on connections to that central BI team. Without those commitments, I don't think you even open things up. You don't provide access.
Right.
Oh man, this has been a really good discussion again. Are we at that time, gentlemen? Are we at time here?
We are at that time.
We are at that time
where life has to start again.
So Mike, enjoy your vacation thing, whatever you're doing.
I'll be working. I'll be traveling. So just FYI for those of you who are avid listeners, we will be doing Thursday's episode via a recording. So we already recorded that one, so that'll be happening on Thursday. Catch that one on Thursday. We'll try and catch the chat window. The chat messages will probably be in there as well. Having discussions during Thursday. I'm traveling for some family stuff, and so I'll be able to do the podcast from home. So we'll be back at it live again next week. But with that, yeah.
Happy Tuesday.
Oh
gosh.
my goodness.
Wow. That was almost a tragedy.
That was almost epic fail on your side.
That would have been the last podcast,
Wow.
last episode.
You know what? There would have been like a whole one person in the entire audience that would have had a bad day because they missed their Happy Tuesday.
Now you've got to listen through the whole podcast to get the Happy
to see if you. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for listening. We appreciate your time. I hope you have had some good insights or discussion here. Thank you for the chat. Awesome. You guys did amazing. A lot of great points. Good documentation pieces you brought up. Really love the experience and knowledge that comes through the chat. So thank you very much for participating. If you like this conversation, please share it with somebody else. If you like what we're saying here regularly, please subscribe and hit the like button or the bell. Like button, subscribe, whatever. Hit buttons and things. Press all the buttons, and hopefully it goes better. Anyways, Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
Usually most people get better at these types.
That's how you start streaming every morning. You start hitting buttons.
This should just tell you everything you need to know. Most people
it doesn't.
Just hit keys, must smash keyboard, must stream podcast.
Most people get better with the template of things they say over time. We've gotten progressively worse.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, definitely listen to Thursday. Guys, our late night ones, because we recorded pretty late, get silly.
Oh,
and
it's silly.
It's a pretty
it's good.
It's a pretty one.
I laugh
Zelda
at it.
comes up. That's gonna be my little teaser. So
oh man.
Yeah. Anyways, please, if you are listening, subscribe on to Apple, Spotify, leave a rating. It helps us out a ton. And if you are listening, watch us live. Join the conversation. We have a great community. We love hearing from you guys and your suggestions, refuting us, our idiotic takes, and helping really frame it. Also, as to Mike's point, please share. We really appreciate it. We love this community, so we would love to see it grow.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you on recording on Thursday, and we'll see you live next week. Thank you.